with communism, and to a Russian, a Democrat is pretty much a socialist, which is pretty much a closet communist. That's the Russian mentality. So Russians, any Russian that is an American that came to Russia in the 90s, and they would never, ever, ever vote for any Democrat. They will only vote Republican. That's just their mentality. So I know the country of Russia wanted Trump to win.
Tom, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Since you've been there so recently, what is the general, you're like, okay, a lot of people like him there, but what is the general sort of like vibe like? When you go to like a restaurant or you just talk to random people, is it just most of the people that you talk to like him? Is that what you found?
It's not even about liking Trump. It has nothing to do with Trump. It's the fact that a Democrat is not president of America. Talk to any Russian over the age of 40 right now, because that means that if you are Russian over the age of 40, you are pretty familiar with the communism in Russia, because that's now been about 20 years. So that means you were, at least of voting age when Russian communism fell, and they would never, ever vote. I mean, there's always exceptions, but like 95% of those people will never vote for a Democrat.
Right, but Tone, you're looking at this from, a geopolitical view, and maybe that's, a good way of looking at it. But there's also just, it's sort of funny saying the capitalistic view of Russian hacking, but they broke into servers in order to find data and then sell data that would influence the election. So you had, in the indictment, I read the indictment earlier today, you had a congressional candidate who was unnamed, who actually had conversations with some of these folks about getting data. So I'm a little, to be honest, I'm a little skeptical on blaming the Russians for Hillary losing. Like what I said earlier about Russians wanting Trump to win. It doesn't mean that they were actually going to help Trump win. It just means they were happy for the American people. Like when I was in Russia the day after the election, like the people that I spoke to were like happy for the American citizens that Trump won. So that's completely independent of that. Now, if it is proven true, and I don't really believe, the Democratic losing side blaming Russia for everything. Now, even if whoever the hackers were, you're right, it is very possible that those hackers are very familiar with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is part of their life independent of this one particular incident. Maybe they demanded to be paid in Bitcoin for their work of hacking. And maybe and I still I will never, again, I don't know what proof I would need to see to believe that these hackers were Russian. Because I just don't believe whatever that side of the government says. All right, Sasha, sorry, you haven't spoken in ages. Go for it.
That's okay. Yeah, reading this, it was just interesting. They use prepaid cards and peer-to-peer currency. So it's like what Adela or Fluffy Pony said about the knives. Like, it doesn't matter what if they're using cash or, any kind of transfer of value, it doesn't have to be Bitcoin. So it is kind of unfortunate that Bitcoin gets, it always gets a bad name in the news when it's associated with any crime. And I think people forget that cash is used for crime just as easily as Bitcoin is.
Even more.
Yeah.
Even more. Because,
yeah, it gives them another scapegoat. It gives them something else to blame other than themselves or their technological incompetence of protecting emails. Like, hey, Hillary, maybe you shouldn't have a server in your closet.
Mm-hmm. And then it also goes on to say that they were able to get the Bitcoin on peer-to-peer exchanges that are, known as decentralized exchanges or less tightly controlled. And I wonder what exchanges the people were using for that. Like, that would be interesting to know. I guess, in a lot of the areas of the world, they don't require KYC information, but in most of the exchanges here, you have to put your information in to be able to use the exchange. So they could do it at an ATM machine somewhere in the rest of the world, or just peer-to-peer transfer too, I guess. But what decentralized exchange they used would be interesting. And it's kind of on the other side, it's in a way nice that they can't identify it on certain areas. Like, it means the privacy is still there on some forms of transfer. whether they're using it for hacking or not. It's nice to see that there still is a way to transfer Bitcoin anonymously, because in America, it's become pretty much that you have to identify yourself to make any kind of transfer of any size anyway, which I think we're going to talk about in a later story. So that was just my kind of interpretation on this one. And then on the executive order, what I was wondering here is, are they doing this? Are they bringing all these areas of the government together so that they can get, like, some types of the government, I think, have higher capability of surveillance? Like the FBI would be able to perform more surveillance than the SEC, no doubt. So are they merging everyone so that they can get whatever agency can do the most spying, have them looking into whatever it is? Or maybe that's not what any part of it. But to me, that's, the first thing I thought was that it was for the purpose of surveillance.
I didn't read it as granting any new powers. It seems to me to be informational sharing.
But does that mean that, like, some agencies that couldn't get certain information can now get them using a agency that has higher informational gathering capability?
I believe that, if, let's say, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau wanted to do an investigation, they could go and contact the Department of Justice and work it out. Maybe this makes the communications cleaner, but I don't know.
Okay.
All right, guys, let's jump to our next story. This one is very unfortunate, and but I really do want to talk about an LA local Bitcoin trader that goes by the screen name Bitcoin Madam was facing up to 30 months in prison, and it looks like she only got a 1-year sentence, potentially out in 10 months, I believe, and it was, her real name is Teresa Talley, and I actually met her. I met her at PorcFest about 3 weeks ago or so, 3 or 4 weeks ago. She was at PorcFest. I mean, she didn't want to go on camera, obviously, because she's not silly like the BitConnect people. She has her sentencing coming up. It was coming up 2 weeks after the event in New Hampshire, but I did talk to her about it. So that was a very interesting conversation. So she was one of the biggest local Bitcoin dealers in LA. And like it says in the article, she did about $6 million to $9.5 million worth of dollars worth of transactions between 2014 and 2017. But she was trying to do it, as legally as she thought was possible. Now, she did not, it looks like she did not register with FinCEN, but she claimed all of her income. She was paying taxes on all of her dealings. Like, she wasn't, she wasn't trying to, like, hide it. She was doing this as her job. And I guess they got her on to, and I'm not even sure if she was or wasn't registered with FinCEN. I don't, maybe it says in the article. I know I read it a little while ago. I don't remember if she was or wasn't registered with FinCEN. She might have even been registered with FinCEN. The way they got her seems like the same way they got Morgan Raccoons, who I interviewed on this YouTube channel as well. Basically, one of the buyers of, one of the sellers of Bitcoin to her basically implied that the Bitcoin was earned through illicit activity, whether it was, drug purchases or something like that. And that was an undercover agent. And that's how a lot of these people get caught. And I guess the real moral of the story is, if you're doing a local Bitcoin deal, and the moment you even, you may want to record these things for your own record because you don't want to get entrapped, but the moment you even hear your counterparty mention anything illicit, whether done with the cash, with the Bitcoin before the deal, or they mention something like, oh, great, thanks for the Bitcoin, I'm going to go, buy some drugs. Now, at that point, you got to walk away and say, hey, I can't do this deal with you. I have to walk away. Or if the deal is already done, say, hey, well, I wish I didn't do this deal with you. Please never call me again. But they actually expect you to report it as well to FinCEN. So this becomes a problem. So I'll grab your thoughts. I don't know who wants to go first here. Do I pick somebody or somebody wants to pick?
I'll go first because I'll say